So here is a document outlining the chronological listings of conquests by Islam from the birth of Muhammad through to present day society. So Muhammad was born in 570 in Mecca. He was actually part of the Quraysh religion in Mecca, who worshipped multiple gods, multiple idols, but they particularly worshipped an idol called Hubble. And there is actually extensive research that proves that this god Hubble is actually Baal, who is basically Satan. But that is by the by, because Muhammad apparently in 610 had a religious experience and started Islam. So essentially, from the inception of Islam, they began trying to convert people. So that's kind of normal, I guess, for a religion. But Muhammad was definitely a warmonger, and he often would do this by force. So as you can see, in 615, Muhammad did invite, apparently, the Hashemites to adopt Islam. And there was a backlash in Mecca towards Muslims who were obviously starting out young, and no one really wanted this change. So there was backlash against them. But 75 converts from Medina professed Islam as the truth and aligned themselves with Muhammad in 622. This is where things get really interesting, because his Jewish supporters refused to recognize him as a prophet and adopt Islam. So he decided to emphasize the Arabness of Islam and basically turn against the Jews, which is really interesting because the Quran is very much against Jews. So they were either banished or executed at this point in 624 for turning against Muhammad. Now, would Jesus have done that? I don't think so. Is this the behavior of a prophet? Not to my knowledge. So he continued on with his warfare. Battle of Badr. Muhammad and his followers defeated an army from Mecca. Muhammad's chief rival, Abu Jahl, was executed, again another death at the hands of Islam in 624. So here in 627, Muhammad suspected that the Jews were helping the Meccans in battle. 600 men had their hands bound behind their backs and were confined in one of their immense houses, where they passed the night in reciting psalms and prayers. The next morning, Muhammad went to the marketplace and ordered deep trenches to be made. The men were led to the brink, one by one, with their hands tied behind their backs. Their heads were hewn with sabres, and they were thrown into the pits. The slaughter lasted the whole day and was carried on by torchlight. So in 627, Muhammad did go ahead and basically execute all of these people. And in 630, an army of 30,000 Muslims marched on Mecca, which at that point surrendered. So lots of war and death here already. So when Muhammad died in 632, they devised a system to allow Islam to sustain religious and political stability. So Islam was basically a military force, and they lauded their authority over basically Arabia, and moved northward, defeating Byzantine and Persian forces. So the father-in-law died a couple of years later, and a guy called 𝐜𝐢𝐫𝐜 succeeded him in the second caliph, launching a new campaign against the neighboring empires. So here we go. So there's nothing but war and death and destruction from the beginning. So we go on, and then in 633, they conquer Syria and Iraq, who were previously Christian countries and Jew countries that were peaceful. Now this is where things get really interesting. In 634, they have a victory against the Byzantines in Palestine. All right, so 𝐜𝐢𝐫𝐜 reigns as the second caliph. The Muslims subjugate Egypt, Palestine, Syria, Mesopotamia, and Persia. And the Muslim rulers take control of these areas. They then go ahead and conquer Persia and Syria, 635. And Arabs dominate Syria from 636 to 637. And in 637, Jerusalem falls to Muslim forces. So here we go, guys. Muslims taken over places where they never originated. They were taking over everywhere. And then they conquered Persia, Egypt. Islam spread to Egypt, and they conquered Alexandria. And then they start creeping into Europe. 649, they raid Cyprus. 652, they raid Sicily. And I know for a fact they went into Malta because I'm Maltese, and a lot of the language and the place names and everything there are Arabic. So they're going through Europe now, okay? They go through Morocco. They take over that. They capture the islands of Rhodes. They reach Indus River. They capture Carthage. They raid Sicily again in 700. Then they go through Afghanistan. They take Afghanistan in 711. 715, they conquest Spain, okay? Then they go into Lisbon. They go to southern France in 719 and the Pyrenees in 721. All right, so here we go. They're going through Europe still, pretty similar to today, really. 724, they raid southern France and occupy Nimes in southern France. All right, let's keep going, guys. Right, now the Christians get involved. They've had enough in 732. This is about 100 years of Muslims invading, killing, and taking over lands that aren't theirs. The Christians win, all right, in this battle of Tours, with 1,500 soldiers. And then they decide to maybe back off from Europe, and they go to Baghdad. Alrighty, so now Islam has spread throughout the whole Middle East at this point. North Africa, 1801. Vikings begin selling slaves to Muslims. Now, that's something I didn't know, but here they go attacking Rome. So now they're in Italy. All right, so these people are going around taking everyone's life, taking everyone's land. They take Palermo and make that their capital. They take Marseille. They take Bari in the south of Italy. They raid Ostia near Rome, damage the churches of St. Peter and St. Paul. All right, Battle of Ostia. Here we go again. Christian victory. Calling out my Christian brothers for that victory. And young Christians, 1851. Young Christians are executed for insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Old habits do die hard. Muslims raid Constantinople in 851. They slaughter several thousand people in Castro Giovanni, which sounds Italian, in 859. All right, oh, there we go. 869, the Arabs capture the island of Malta. Shout out to my ancestors. Muslim invaders capture Syracuse. Muslims pillage Campania in Italy. Muslims invade Italy, burn the monastery of Monte Cassino in 1884 to the ground. The Fatimid dynasty assumes control of Egypt in 900. And in 902, the Muslim conquest of Sicily is completed when the Christian city of Taormina is captured. So they're all through Sicily, the south of Italy at this point, and they're controlling the Alps between France and Italy, cutting off the passage between those two countries. So just ruining Christians' lives across Europe. They control the Alps between France and Italy from 911. God, when will they stop? They don't. They never stop. They still haven't. Oh my goodness, it never bloody ends. All right, 1015, Arab Muslim forces conquer Sardinia. Look, these are very violent, aggressive people, obviously, if they're taking over all of these places. I don't really know. Look, let's keep going, guys. Eventually, the Crusade, 1095, the First Crusade. After 450 years of bloodshed, Pope Urban II called upon the kings of Christendom to send a military expedition to regain the Holy Lands, which had been taken by the Muslim conquest of the Levant. At the same time, Byzantine Emperor Alexius I had asked Urban II for help against the invasion of the Turks. Jerusalem was recaptured in 1099. Islam would never suffer a naval defeat by the Europeans until the Battle of Lepanto in 1571.